Welcome to the stage, Dr. Edward Womack.
There were times where I counted myself out. There were times where I had no idea where to turn. There were times where I had put myself in dire straits. There were times where my intellect could not carry me. There were times where those that loved me couldn't reach me. There were times where when betrayal entered into the picture, I tried to take myself to a place of no longer existing. But today, I'm back from broken. I'm Dr. Ed, the Urban Leadership Strategist. And I want to share with you for a moment in the essence of why we're gathered here today in this bottom to the top tour as an honored participant, and take you with me, if you will, for a bit of a journey. You know, you probably recognized the energy, the tenacity, the drive of all today. But I'm reminded of that duck. You see, on the top of the water, everything looks pretty smooth. And oftentimes we overlook the flood of the paddle of life that it took to get to that smooth movement. You see, early in my journey, I found myself in a placement of disarray when betrayal from the effects of one that should have been there to protect me, one that should have been there to be my role model, one that should have been there to protect me. And some of you sitting there watching this broadcast might even be able to relate to your very own pit of betrayal, that pit of violation, that being violated at a young age creates. It was as though, for moments, the very man in me had been stripped from my soul. That the very essence of who I should have been, I have been denied. Have you been there? You see, these are things that might, to some, seem insignificant. To others, may be points that you can relate to pretty regularly. But what I know is this, that while I was caught and trapped in that battle between, I was reared in a family of affluence, but at the same time, I was being destroyed by a portion thereof. I found myself in a situation of indecision, struggling, broken, if you will. Again, I go back to that duck analogy. I had children that would say to my parents or to their parents, "Oh, I wish my sins would be like yours." And I'd have to think quietly to myself, I don't think so. I listened to instructors, teachers say how awesome, brilliant, talented, and it kind of rolled off my back like water off a duck because of the deep-seated betrayal that occurred. I couldn't even receive the praise, the accolades. You see, because I was broken. I took those opportunities that presented themselves and oftentimes squandered or didn't even really pursue them. You see, because I was broken. I elevated in various capacities in the classroom and most things outward, always kind of dressed nice, had decent things, went places, but on the inside, I was broken. Have you been there? Where you've done everything you knew that you were told to do, knew that you were supposed to do, excelled even on occasion, only to realize that you might be broken. Well, guys, I'm not going to hang out there too long, but you know, I would be remiss if I didn't really and truly peel back the covers and really allow you to have a glance at the paddling feet underneath, despite the smooth duck on the surface of the water. Moving through life, going into a point of merely existence, not really living, but merely existing, merely running from place to place, face to face, person to person, trying to find myself, only to realize I was broken. Thinking that all of the efforts that I have put into my schoolwork, into my job, into what I thought was a relationship was broken. You see, there was a disconnect that was going on inside my mind because intellectually and logically, I was excelling. I was passing and doing things above average, beyond what was expected of me. But on the other hand, I had this desire to just totally escape the reality that I refused or chose not to deal with because I was broken. And a lot of times, especially as a male, it is very difficult at the time that I was growing up to come forth and speak about those things that occurred, to be bold enough to say that, hey, this is happening because, you know, I don't know, maybe you grew up in this type of household where it was often said, well, what happens in this house stays in this house, especially as a male. You see, I was broken. But there was also a time where I found myself excelling in my career to a point that I was traveling the world. I had a big house. I drove fancy cars. I had great clothes. People looked to me for guidance and wisdom. I even, at one point in time, was like one of 3 certification instructors for a large software company on the planet. Now, that might be, for some people, something to shout about. But for me, I was broken. I don't know what your plight may be. Perhaps it wasn't that you found yourself struggling with those trust issues, struggling with abandonment, struggling with alienation. You see, growing up as a smart kid on the west side of Detroit really wasn't that popular. and I had a really tough road to go because it was mandated that I had to get good grades because police officer dad and nurse mom would accept nothing less. But at the same time, my homeboys, those that were hip, cool, and slick, the ballers that I was rolling with, crushing, they didn't quite get it either. So in essence, I was broken. And so I took that chaos, that madness, that war within that was going on, and I took it into my adult life. And boy, did I create a mess. Because I was still broken. But one day, I decided, okay, eventually I think I might be over the childhood betrayal. And in my adult life, my then wife decided, okay, I don't want to deal with you anymore. And having not healed properly from the previous betrayals in life and still walking around fronting, starting, and perpetrating, I really had still that hole, that sore that wasn't quite healed. And she said, I don't want to play no more. Oh. It was as though the scab was pulled off the wound of someone who was still broken. So fast forward a bit, that evolved into some additional poor decisions as a result of my brokenness, which ended me up walking the streets of Decatur, Georgia, trying to resist the brokenness, trying to do what I thought at the moment would allow me to no longer feel the pain, trying to hide myself behind drugs, alcohol, butt-naked women, nasty hotels, and a life of a trap monster. You see, I was still broken. And this went on for a couple of years, about $400,000 worth of 401k, a lot of alienation from my children, which I'm not proud of. They had no clue where I was, my former wife neither. Until I squandered and went through about $400,000 in about a 6-month period, blew out of my mind on a daily basis, decided that, going to a job that was paying me well over 6 figures at the time, I didn't want to do that. I'd much rather go hang out in a grungy hotel with butt-naked women chasing one more rock. You see, I was broken. And so one day, when I had finally gotten to the low of the low, and I realized that these things that have been holding me hostage, because they say that the truth can set you free. Well, kind of, sort of, but not until you know the lies that have been holding you hostage. And for my note takers, I'll say that again. The truth can set you free. But not until you know the lies that have been holding you hostage. And so as I began to realize that there had to be more in life for me, and I began to peel back the layers of the onion and remove the chains that had held me hostage and kept me bound, so to the point that I felt that I was broken, I began to transition to the point where I began to really take opportunity, the first step of saying, help me. Help me. Not an easy step. Help me. Not one that I'm proud of. Help me. Not one that's very popular. And there was this place down on 21 Bell Street called Trinity House Big Bethel that said, we'll help you. And in that process of helping me, what occurred to help me come out of being broken, what was the opportunity for me to begin to get to know Ed. It began to pull back the layers, the chains that had held me hostage for so long, to begin to get an understanding of not only who I was, but whose I was. And so the journey began to get to that placement where, as I began to dig through the pomp and circumstance, the glitz, the glamour, the expectations, the failures, the disappointments, as I began to peel back the betrayal even, and began to realize that first and foremost, I had to forgive me. you see, and it didn't make what had happened, the multiple betrayals, the violations, the molestation, it didn't make that right, but it enabled me to at least begin the process of clearer thinking. And so the first lifeline for any of us that are in transition is to be able to get to that point where hopefully you can begin to sort out those things that have been holding you hostage. Newsflash, if you are holding on to anger, bitterness, and resentment, guess what? You are basically accelerating your own physical ailment. Sometimes perhaps fatal. I couldn't believe it. I was sitting in a sermon at Big Bethel AME Church, and they had just came back from their annual conference, and during that, they shared how there was medical documentation that anger, bitterness, and resentment was literally bound and tied to physical ailment, sometimes fatality. Okay, let me put that in layman's terms. If you walk around here mad at somebody else, holding a grudge and resentment, you hurting yourself, and you might kill yourself because of it. I said, wait a minute. I ain't the smartest person in the world, but let me dig into that a little bit. So I thought about it. I said, well, wait a minute. You're walking around here frustrated. You're walking around here feeling like you've been overlooked. You walk around here feeling as though nobody cares. But do you really care, Ed? And I had to say to myself, at that point, I didn't even know who I was. You see, because I was broken. But I didn't ponder there too long. I didn't hang out in that space, because now that I had finally gotten to the point where I said enough was enough and I need some help. Well, what occurred was, first of all, that first bold step of saying I need some help reminded me of a quote that I eventually began to then further understand by my surrogate mentor, Dr. Martin Luther King. He said, you got to take that first step even when you can't see the entire staircase. And trust me, that was a bold step, because as a man, a true man, a heterosexual man, a former Marine, an individual that grew up on the west side of Detroit, surrender was just not something that was part of who I was. So the first thing they say to me when I get to Trinity House is, oh, well, if you want to make it out of this, you're going to have to surrender to win. I'm like, what? In fact, why don't you just shut up for 30 days? Huh? I get paid for a living to travel the world, large sums of money to work with software companies. What do you mean, shut up for 30 days? Sometimes in life, the things that you least expect will provide you benefit are the very things you need in transition. Because remember, I was broken. And if I was as smart and as brilliant and had as much logical capability as I thought, I probably wouldn't have ended up in a place where I had to say, I need help. It wasn't painful. It was painful. It wasn't a proud moment, and one that I'm sure some of you sitting out there in bottom to the top land may have struggled with in different capacities. Maybe you weren't a crackhead strung out and walking the streets of Decatur where you had squandered $400,000 till one day, after you had conned and schemed and pretty much played game on everybody that possibly would listen, to the point that you had nothing. And found yourself sitting like I was in a square of Decatur over a pile of ants. I refer to them intimately in my book Back from Boken as them damn ants. And on that day, what I realized, and I was pondering and looking at them damn ants. My first impulse was to just stomp them out. But what I had to do on that day was realize, as I was observing them damn ants, was that, wait a minute, them damn ants are working together. Them damn ants are getting it done. Them damn ants are sometimes carrying twice their weight. And you know, it's funny how sometimes God will plant a seed, a thought in your mind, and he said, well, today, Ed, do you think you're even worthy of being one of them damn ants? And I honestly could not do anything but say, wow. And on that day, as I pondered and looked at those ants going at it, I said, here I sit, toe up from the flow up, to the point where if I had taken my clothes off and thrown them in the corner, they'd have stood standing. They were so foul, it was so raunchy, it was despicable. And on that day, as I was looking at them damn ants, I thought about all of the offensive things that I had said and been through and watched and observed. Certainly not what I was reared to do. Certainly not what police officer dad or nurse mom intended or desired for my life to turn out like. But on that day in that square, looking at them damn ants was the day that I finally said, help. And so today I hope that you might find your own pile of ants, them damn ants, that give you the unction if you need it. Where you're in the valley, you're in the transition, you need to get to that point where you can say, help. Help is not a sign of weakness, contrary to what mom and them might have told, a sign of futility. It's not a sign of you giving up. In fact, it's pretty darn smart. Help. Everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs a mentor. Everybody needs somebody to support them in their endeavors in life. Everybody needs somebody that might just call them on their trash. And so as I went through that process of help, and I worked my way around the table at Trinity House, I ultimately became the chairman of the house table. I now sit on the board of Trinity House Big Bethel, where I was once a resident. I now sit on the board as a program committee member. I now also have a 4-year running radio station and movement called Man Rise Up, that's saving, empowering, and enriching the lives of men in their life, work, and play through collective and collaborative events such as from the bottom to the top, for being participant in workshops, seminars, also being able to do things in the community. Why? Because I'm back from broken. You see, today I'm back from broken. And if I can do it, so can you. Now, while your plight might not have been molestation, while your midlife crisis may not have been crack addiction, while you may not even have an aspiration to be a motivational speaker, an author, a radio host, the owner of a network, a producer, that might not be your aspiration. But until you get to a point where you can know who you are, and more importantly, whose you are, so that you, regardless of what it is that you're going through, you too can come back from broken. Baby, let me help you understand something. The truth can set you free. But first, you got to know the lies that are holding you hostage. You can't hold on to bags that don't belong to you. You can't walk around here harboring anger, bitterness, and resentment expecting that you are going to get well. And here's what I know. Now that I'm back from broken, and I began to change my playgrounds, because there was a point in my journey where it says that an addict, any addict, can stop using, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. And when we did that, what I began to realize as I started to change the people, the places, and the things that I held important, I began to realize a realization of who I was. More importantly, I began to realize whose I was. And when I did, let me tell you, there's a very easy method to enable you, no matter what it is that you're going through, to overcome your valley experience. First of all, you got to get mad, which ain't bad. It's necessary. You got to get mad enough that you are going to put into play 3 key steps real quick, and then I'm going to be out of here. But there's 3 key things, no matter what it is that you're going through. First of all, you got to get mad, which ain't bad. It's necessary. So first, mad. M, you got to get to the point where your mindset begins to shift, where you no longer are embracing all of the things that are or were inflicted upon you as you were growing up, as you were a young type, but surround yourself with new information, new insights, new accountability that will enable your mind to begin to be renewed. So I'm reminded of a scripture from my favorite book, the undisputed #1 bestseller, where it says, "Be ye not transformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." And so if you're willing to get mad, which ain't bad, it's necessary. Go ahead and change your mindset if you dare. Change the ways that you think about things. Change the way that you look at things. And I promise you, what things that you look at will change. Secondly, you got to have an attitude adjustment that's going to enable you to begin to elevate beyond the betrayals. An attitude that will say, you know what, those challenges, no big deal. I'm reminded of something that Mickey Rooney said. Now that I'm changing my mindset and reading new things, he said, on your way to success, you will encounter failures. Not maybe, not you might, you will encounter failures on your way to success. So what? Really? Instead of it being viewed or perceived as chaos, as it being perceived as betrayal, as it being perceived as abandonment, this might just be an opportunity for growth. This might be a chance for me to pass the test. This might be an opportunity for me to expand my thought and my mindset on doing something different. So when you change your attitude and your perspective on the things that you look at, I promise you the things that you look at will change. And the last lifeline that I want to share with you all here in the Bottom to the Top Atlanta tour is from a quote by Og Mandino. He said, you got to be determined and you got to persist until you succeed. That's real simple. It sounds like, right? You got to persist until you succeed. You got to be determined that once you find out what it is that you've been purposed to do, once you recover from the brokenness in your life, such as myself, and you find that you are back from broken, you got to just put one foot in front of the other. When obstacles find their way in your path, just push them aside, walk over them, walk around them, do whatever it takes. Because Michael Jordan says there's some people that wish it would happen. There's others that want it to happen. But for the determined person, they're going to make it happen. And so on this day of the Bottom to the Top Tour Atlanta, as Dr. Ed Womack, the urban leadership strategist who is now back from broken, I'd be remiss if I didn't leave you with this. Good, better, best. We can't let it rest until our good is our better and our better is our best. And I promise you, if you look at those valley experiences, those down times, those frustrations, those betrayals as opportunities for success and learning and growth, instead of looking at them as an indictment, full stop. We might just see you at the top. It's your man, Dr. Ed Womack, the urban leadership strategist. And baby, I'm back from broken. Peace. I'm out of here, y'all.
The Bottom to the Top tour is not a moment, it is a movement. If you've been inspired by the powerful testimonies of the speakers that you have heard today, you have an opportunity to have your own copy of the new soon-to-be-released book, Testify. You don't want to miss the opportunity to read through the details of the stories, the trials, the challenges, and the triumphs of the 12 speakers featured on the Bottom to the Top Tour Atlanta. If you would like to bring the Bottom to the Top tour to your local city and your local town, please dial 1-866-686-5836. Again, the Bottom to the Top tour, not a moment, it's a movement.